In the modern West, we have access to pleasures, comforts, and entertainments that kings of old could not have dreamed of. But with all this luxury, many people are chronically stressed, anxious, depressed, or struggling with physical debilitations. There is an intimate connection between pleasure and pain, and too many comforts and pleasures may be contributing to modern man's mental and physical malaise. Michael Easter, in The Comfort Crisis, states, "We lack physical struggles. We have too many ways to numb out, like comfort food, cigarettes, alcohol, pills, smartphones, and TV. We don't have to deal with discomforts like working for our food, moving hard and heavy each day, feeling deep hunger, and being exposed to the elements. But we do have to deal with the side effects of our comfort, long-term physical and mental health problems." To understand just how comfortable and pleasurable our lives have become, we can contrast modern existence with the realities faced by our hunter-gatherer ancestors. On a near daily basis, they walked miles to find water and forage food. They expended enormous amounts of energy bringing down large mammals, regularly engaged in persistence hunting, tracking and chasing prey until the animal collapsed in exhaustion. Once they made a kill, they would cut it up and walk miles back to camp, carrying massive pieces of raw meat. As Easter describes, before we figured out animal husbandry and crop cultivation, we were essentially professional athletes whose livelihood required us to be physically active. Our ancestors didn't work out, because nearly all of their waking hours were spent doing things that today we would classify as exercise. Studies show it was not uncommon for these hunters to run and walk more than 25 miles in a day. The numbers suggest that our forefathers, in just 3/4 of a day, logged more activity than most of us now do in a week or two. And they basically stayed at this activity level until they died. Along with intense physical activity, our ancestors endured mental stress without the comforting panaceas of technology, drugs, processed foods, alcohol, and entertaining distractions. They endured the elements of nature without modern housing, air conditioning, or central heating, and they dealt with sickness and infections without modern medicine. Their lives were difficult, often uncomfortable, and sometimes outright painful. Because of this, they evolved an instinctual drive to take full advantage of the available comforts and pleasures. This drive was critical for survival. Whenever possible, they would rest and relax, allowing their minds and bodies to recover. When rich food sources such as fatty meat, fruit, or honey were available, they indulged, building up energy reserves for the uncertain future. Easter explains, "Our original comforts were negligible and short-lived at best. In an uncomfortable world, consistently seeking a sliver of comfort helped us stay alive." While we have inherited our ancestors' drive for pleasure and comfort, this drive evolved in environments of scarcity. Now, we live in an environment of abundance. The modern comforts and conveniences that now most influence our daily experience, cars, computers, television, climate control, smartphones, ultra-processed food, and more have been used by our species for about 100 years or less. That's around 0.03% of the time we've walked the earth. Constant comfort is a radically new thing for us humans. Few would argue for a return to the harsh conditions of our ancestors, but the modern world presents new challenges. Our drive for pleasure and comfort did not evolve, an off switch, it is practically insatiable. Our ancestors did not face the risk of overindulging themselves to a detrimental degree. In our world of abundance, overindulgence is a constant threat. Dr. Tom Finnecane captures this predicament succinctly. We are cacti in the rainforest. One of the dangers of this dynamic is what Easter calls comfort creep. He explains, when a new comfort is introduced, we adapt to it, and our old comforts become unacceptable. Today's comfort is tomorrow's discomfort. This leads to a new level of what's considered comfortable. What's more, new comforts have moved the goalpost further away from what we consider an acceptable level of discomfort. Each advancement shrinks our comfort zones. The critical point is that this all occurs unconsciously. We are terrible at noticing that comfort creep is consuming us and what it's doing to us. This is most apparent in physical comforts, with cars and delivery platforms allowing us to obtain anything we want without leaving home. Increasing numbers of people are living a life of near-total physical inactivity. Easter highlights: 27% of us don't do any type of physical activity at all. Literally nothing. Life as a sort of prolonged shuffle from bed to office chair to sofa to bed. This physical comfort creep is a major cause of the growing epidemic of obesity and chronic physical ailments. The human, simply put, was not designed to sit all day, explains researchers at the Mayo Clinic. Easter adds, in our pursuit of better living, we've allowed comfort to calcify our natural movements and strengths. Without conscious discomfort and purposeful exercise, a forceful push against comfort creep will only continue to become weaker and sicker. Beyond comfort creep, modern pleasures wreak havoc on our mind and body, as pain follows pleasure like a shadow. In Dopamine Nation, psychiatrist Anne Lembeck explains, one of the most remarkable neuroscientific findings in the past century is that pleasure and pain are processed in overlapping brain regions and work via an opponent process mechanism. Another way to say this is that pleasure and pain work like a balance. Our brain is wired to maintain this pleasure-pain balance in equilibrium. When there is a prolonged or excessive imbalance on the side of pleasure, the brain self-regulates by tipping the scales toward pain. Lembeck elaborates, I tend to imagine this self-regulating system as little gremlins, hopping on the pain side of the balance to counteract the weight on the pleasure side. Nietzsche posed a similar idea in The Gay Science. What? The ultimate goal of science is to create the most pleasure possible to man and the least possible pain. But what if pleasure and pain should be so closely connected that he, who wants the greatest possible amount of the one, must also have the greatest possible amount of the other? If we habitually indulge in pleasures, we develop tolerance. Our brain adapts, requiring more to feel the same pleasure, while the pain we experience afterward becomes more severe. If we push this too far, our pleasure-pain balance settles on the side of pain. Over time, we no longer experience pleasure from our indulgences. We merely consume them to avoid suffering, Lembeck warns. The paradox is that hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake, leads to anhedonia, which is the inability to enjoy pleasure of any kind. Diogenes, the cynic, understood this well. He sought out pain and discomfort, rolling in hot sand in the summer, walking barefoot in the snow, and sleeping in a clay jar. Despising pleasure is the greatest of pleasures, he claimed. The good news is that we can reverse this process through abstinence. For weeks of abstaining from our compulsive pleasures can reset our brain's reward system, restoring our ability to enjoy life's simpler pleasures. As Lembeck puts it, recovery begins with abstinence. Abstinence resets the brain's reward pathway, and with it, our capacity to take joy in simpler pleasures. Modern science suggests that, in this Diogenes was not mad, but ahead of his time. He understood what we have forgotten. Comfort is not the path to fulfillment. In embracing pain, we rediscover what it means to truly live.